Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome to our review of Prey for the Devil. Alrighty, so this one, as we said in our short, was something that we were not sure if we were going to check out this weekend. We kind of brought it up a little bit on the Sunday Scaries, and I think it kind of came down to the consensus of just, hey, it's the last weekend of October, really. We're just kind of, it's the last big horror movie, I guess, that's kind of coming out there if you want to put a little asterisk on big. I figure, why not? It's just something to get on the channel or review out for you guys. And plus, I didn't see many people talking about it. So it was just kind of like, well, let's see if this is a hidden gem. And Luke, how are we feeling about Prey for the Devil?
Especially for me, this one was kind of right up until the bell because I was almost not going to go see this. And I was like, well, much to what you just said. It's like, oh, I might as well just get to the theater, check it out. But very undecided initially going into this one. We had seen it in pretty much in front of every film that we were going to see in terms of a trailer. I think this was not even, I would say, showcase. It was just kind of an extra one thrown on, that I would oftentimes forget what this film was. I think when you had brought it up, it took me a minute to run through everything in my brain to be like, oh yeah, that film. And after seeing this, I would pretty much phrase this as totally forgettable. I mean, it's just something that doesn't really speak to anyone. I don't think this feels like a lot of stuff that happened in the 2009, 2010, 2011 randomness of just that kind of supernatural horror. It really falls in line with that.
Yeah, I think forgettable is probably the correct way to say this. Unfortunately, it's just one of those movies that, like, we had a big influx of these. I feel like in the mid 2000s, like Haunting in Connecticut and the last exorcism of Emily Rose and stuff. Which, I mean, some people really love that movie. I have never seen it because these movies aren't really my cup of tea. I don't have an issue with the idea of an exorcism film. I just think that they all kind of really deal with the same subject matter in the same way. And the big thing about it is it's like, yeah, like slashers deal with the same subject matter of somebody killing people in a woods or a house or whatever. But I always look for something to kind of shake that formula up a bit. And this movie does attempt that. And I think the idea is interesting. I just feel like they just kind of fall too far into the tropes of this like specific kind of horror film that it really just doesn't set itself too far apart from anything we've gotten before.
Yeah, and that's where it kind of just falls in line with the same. Like we were saying, they there's a specific formula for these films, and I don't know necessarily if it's a great formula to go by because like looking at this film, I can get this one, especially after I've seen it, a year goes past and I'm trying to remember this film. This is one of those ones where it can get easily melded into three other films that I've seen, and I wouldn't be able to distinctively say, oh, this happened in this one or that happened in this one. So, again, it's very same feel to those films. This doesn't feel unique. And I know we've talked about it a lot on here where we've been treated to a lot of unique horror films, and this just is not one of them. This is just very bare bones, very basic. I don't even know if a general audience would find this one intriguing enough. I know there are a few jump scares in here. I don't think they got either of us. I was sitting right next to you, and I didn't think you jumped at all. So this was very just. I don't think they really achieved that jump scare. I mean, maybe to someone who's a little bit newer in horror, but I really feel like with those, you can anticipate them just with the storytelling here. And like you said, they tried something a little unique in terms of the storytelling, but I think you can see it coming from a mile away.
Oh, absolutely. The twist of this film, if you want to put again another asterisk on twist, you can kind of really they tee it up pretty lazily, I would
Yeah,
say.
it's very in your
And
face.
yes, they kind of really lean into, okay, this is what's going on. So once you get to that point, it's kind of like, oh well, yeah. I think more or less I leaned over to you and I said, oh, that's the twist, and you said, oh yeah, no, I agree. To be honest, it was more one of those things where we had kind of checked out, I feel like, at that point in the movie, and I was just more or less just making that as a joke.
Yeah.
And then that kind of actually happened. And then, it's just kind of like, okay. And, it is just one of those films that unfortunately, and I have to put this on the writing and the directing primarily because it's just so telegraphed. Like you can tell everything that they're talking about is coming right back to you in the end, which I know like you're supposed to do that in screenwriting. You're supposed to set things up to pay off in the end, but it just all felt again very lazy and very just like, hey, I have this nugget of a good idea, but let me just put in every single exorcism trope that I can. And it sucks because there were a couple of aspects to this that I thought, if put in the hands of a more competent writer and a more competent director, you could have had some really intriguing like set pieces and things in here. I enjoyed kind of getting into that school and kind of seeing how that all works and the levels to it and how they had these kind of high tech prisms in a sense of how they kept watch on people who were possessed and everything like that. And it's like aesthetically, it's all very much there and it looks cool. And I kind of like the melding of the old and the new, but again, they don't do anything with it. It's all set dressing, and then the characters are pretty one note. So you don't really get too deep into anybody's relationship. At one point, I thought maybe you would after a very specific scene early on in the film. There's a point when three of our younger characters are kind of all sitting around having drinks, and I thought, okay, we might get a little deeper here with some of these people. But no, they just move on with the film after just a couple lines of dialogue, and it just is there to set up another set piece that comes later. And it's just like, okay, when are we going to start getting into our characters? When are we going to start adding these layers to it? And it just never gets there.
And that's where it feels very surface level, where it's again, it could have been an intriguing premise in terms of where they set this and everything like that, but they never really take advantage of it. It just seems very generic. It seems like um, not necessarily that we wanted to tell a supernatural story in this setting. It was just like, we want to tell a supernatural story. Now, what setting works here? It's just kind of thrown in after the fact, it feels. Where, like you're saying, we get kind of set up in terms of how the inner workings of all this works. And, if we're seeing people who are possessed and how they're essentially contained. And they feel like you're setting it up almost for like a Silence of the Lambs in terms of where you're going down, you're going to be seeing several different people. And for this to kind of set up in that setting, this isn't like a Conjuring where, the Warrens just focus on one family. This is kind of almost, it feels like it should be bigger, where it should be the like overseers, where these are the people that you call in. We even have people contained here where you'd be seeing a lot more there rather than for such almost how you would set up a big world. This feels very small. And it was such an odd take where going into this kind of world here where this opens up a lot of conversation. One of the things that intrigues me about these kinds of films here, especially where we're setting up, kind of with the Catholic themes, where we're kind of falling into a lot of people in our age groups and or just kind of becoming less religious. So this becomes an interesting topic to discuss, and I think maybe some people that are a little bit younger kind of tune out when we're going to get into maybe an overly religious theme, or just kind of see it in terms of a trailer or knowing what the concept of something was going to be about. Whereas, this could have opened up something very interesting if you wanted to take a advantage of that actual setting and kind of do a bold move, like we seem to talk about a lot, and kind of do something intriguing with the storytelling. But again, it just feels like it's set in the setting it is, just to do it, and we don't really take advantage of it in the slightest at all.
Yeah, and I think that it really is a case by case basis on that too, unless like who's really still more in the religious side of things. But you're right, as far as this stuff goes, it's not going to hit as hard as I think it hit with something like The Exorcist back in the 70s. Because like at that point, religion was still very much a huge thing in your general family household, as it's not as big today. But there's still room for that. I still think that
Yeah.
there is. You could definitely pull people in with that. But again, I just feel like they just fall into the same tropes and they don't really move forward with anything. And it sucks because, like, I think, again, the concept of having this be the first real female exorcist, and I think they say what, like 7 centuries or something like
Yeah,
that,
something like that. Yeah.
at the end of the film, and it's like one of those things where it's like, that's a cool idea. Like, why don't we push forward with that? But it just gets really tropey, and they don't necessarily explain the threat all that well, other than just it's a demon, it's a voice, and they want this person for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And again, it just feels like maybe this script needed some more time, needed a few more passes, unfortunately. And then I think that you could have had something that would drag people in a little better. And again, I know that the director here, it's Daniel Stam. Like, he's known for a couple of these. Like, he did The Last Exorcism a few years back. And it's one of those things where it's like, I think that one was another one that, from what I understand, it's not one that I've seen. Was kind of picked as like, oh, it's going to be this next big exorcist kind of exorcism film, and it just again ended up being very so-so. It did get a sequel though, but again, that doesn't look like it was well reviewed either. But yeah, this does honestly feel like it is of that time. This feels like it should probably have come out maybe in like the early 2010s. Um,
Yeah.
it just doesn't feel like it's up to the standard or par that we're looking for in a movie like this. And it makes me a little more worried for the Exorcism trilogy that we're getting, because maybe this concept doesn't have legs. Maybe it's not going to be able to stand, but who knows? You got a different creative team behind that, a little bit more of an established property. So we will see.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as this goes, I agree with you. It's just more forgettable, unfortunately. I'd say if you're interested in this, I'd wait for it to pop up on streaming. I don't think it really deserves your money this weekend. I'm not going to tell you, hey, don't spend your money on a movie. If you really want to go see it, have fun. But I would say if you're on the fence, maybe wait for some streaming.
Yeah, with this subject matter here, where it's been, uh, we get so many of these, a handful of these, probably, every couple of years. So when you're kind of dealing with this, you have to be unique when you're approaching this. And I don't feel, um, Pray for the Devil really went that route. Again, it's very generic. You've seen a handful of other films that are just like this, so kind of going into it, you have to know that. I mean, if maybe a couple of jump scares could get you, I don't know. It didn't get us, but that doesn't mean it can't get you. Um, so it's one of those things where if you're adamant about checking out, I say feel free, head to the theater, and hopefully you enjoy. But if you're undecided, don't really know, if you came here to kind of see what this film's about, and you've enjoyed things like Barbarian or the Black Phone, like we have, this probably isn't going to really tickle your fancy in any sense. So. Uh, maybe wait for this one to come to streaming. I still don't know about that either, just because, again, this is a very generic feeling film.
I agree with you. But unfortunately, guys, that's all we have to say left on Pray for the Devil. So that's going to wrap us up here. As always, you can keep up with us on our social media at Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at SplattercastPod. We post our reactions and keep you up with all the latest and greatest. We are trying to reach 500 subscribers by the end of the month, so feel free to hit that subscribe button if you are not. We are getting very, very close, and we love to see it. We're so happy that all of you guys have joined on the channel here. We appreciate you. Other than that, we do have a live stream coming to you tomorrow, depending on when you're watching this, where we'll be watching Halloween 4. So we're all going to
Yeah,
sit
it's
down,
always fun.
watch that. You'll be able to queue it up yourself. We'll have a nice little live chat and commentary while checking out that film, of course. And we are deep in the Splatterthon still, so there's still lots of great content coming your way, as well as the stuff we've already posted. So feel free to take a look back at that. Luke, you got anything for the folks before we tune out here?
No, I think we got to pitch the
Oh,
giveaway
yes, yes,
though.
yes. The giveaway. So we are doing a giveaway for the end of the month, which we will be giving out the winner on Halloween. We'll be doing a live stream there as well, where we'll be giving a copy of the Black Phone on Blu-ray, as well as a Splatterthon mug. So definitely enter that. There's a link down in the description on how you can enter. It's real simple. And once you guys do, we can give that away to some lucky winner on Halloween. So definitely keep your eye out for that. Lots of great content coming to you. And yeah, unfortunately, we went out with a bit of a whimper here in October, but we had a lot of great movies this year that make up for it, and still a lot of great ones in the theater. So go
And
ahead
there's
and check those out.
still a lot of great streaming releases this week that we still got to catch up on. So
Oh, that
hopefully
is true.
those would be a win for us.
Absolutely. All right. So stay tuned, guys. And until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.